this is Animat, and welcome back to the Muppet Vlog, and welcome to the Season 1 review of The Muppet Show. Now, as you guys may know, I have checked and analyzed every single episode that came out of this season so far, and now that I've pretty much completed all that, let us now go take the entirety of the season and see how it holds as a whole. Now, before we actually do and get things started, let me give you guys a little bit of a summary so you guys have a bit more of an understanding what you're getting yourself into when you enter upon The Muppet Show. Hosted by Kermit the Frog and new Muppets that were made exclusively for this series, The Muppet Show is basically a variety show that offers everything from comedy, musical numbers, song and dance routines, everything that you can imagine for the sake of entertainment. Now, as much as you see what's going to be going on stage in there, you also see the antics that do happen backstage, where you see all the hard work that Kermit and the Muppets have to go through in order to put on a great show. And a lot of comedy and a lot of insanity and all the zaniness that ensues. And on top of that, you also get a special guest star on each episode, showcasing all the stuff that they can do and pretty much all the talents that they have portrayed that really do make them stars. If they're a singer, then they will sing their heart out in this episode. If they're a comedian, they will be cracking jokes with all the Muppets that they have. If they're dancers, then they will dance all around the stage. So overall, it's pretty much all about the show. So it's pretty much all that you see on stage and off stage, while craziness ensues that only the Muppets can deliver. And that's basically the best thing that you can imagine about the Muppet Show. It's not just the show, it's actually about the Muppets, the ones performing the show, the ones that are out there to just give you a show. And you got all sorts of different characters that you can pretty much fall in love with. Of course, you got the host, Kermit the Frog, and you got some of the other ones that you could say that are more main characters, including Fozzie Bear and Miss Piggy, and then an entire cast of all other characters, including Gonzo, Scooter, the Electric Mayhem, and so much more. Oh, and also the Swedish Chef. Like, rather they be on stage or off stage, they're always enjoyable to check out. Sometimes they can even bring in comedy bits that are always a fan favorite, that are always enjoyable. The Swedish Chef is probably one of the biggest highlights of on-stage entertainment, and Fozzie Bear could be one of the prime examples for off-stage entertainment, to see what's going on backstage and all the crazy antics that can happen in there. But on top of that, you also got in the audience as well, of course, Statler and Waldorf. I guess you could say that they're also part of the main ones as well, since they always love cutting back to them. And no matter what the situation is, it's always enjoyable, and they can deliver it only in the way that the Muppets can. In a way, it's like a live-action cartoon, where normally, if you see this animated, you don't really think much of it, because that's what cartoons do. Rather it be through Bugs Bunny or the Flintstones or whatever, like, you see that happen all the time. It's normal. But the Muppets execute it in a way that is so bizarre and is so out there, and you know what you're seeing is actually filmed on camera. It makes it definitely unique. It makes it enjoyable. It makes it a lot of fun. So basically, the Muppets, like, what you see with the Muppets, they're basically live-action cartoon characters in a sense. Well, technically with puppets, that's what they kind of are, but outside of that, well, anyways, that's just randomness thinking of technicalities, but that's not the important point. The Muppets really do make it entertaining. And even with some of the special guest stars, when they highlight them, they really do highlight them well. Sometimes they could really be they could pretty much steal the entire episode, and they could be fantastic. Some great examples that I can think of include Peter Ustinov and the Mummenschanz. Sometimes it's hard to think about what's going on behind what's going on with the Muppets again, but it doesn't matter, because sometimes the special guest stars can really bring out something amazing into it, or they can even bring out some amazing musical numbers. Some that I could even think of, like including Paul Williams and Joel Grey. They can stand out with their musical acts, and they could be a lot of fun. Oh, also I can include Ben Vereen in there too. It's definitely great. Other than that, oh, there is another great thing about the Muppet Show that I will say. It involves the creativity of the Muppet Show. The amount of creativity, considering that this is a puppet show, Jim Henson really went far with what he can do. Now, normally, like, he has previously done that with Sesame Street, but all of that is for the purpose of learning. This, however, is for the purpose of fun and entertainment. There are a lot of musical numbers. They don't necessarily have to feature the well-known Muppets that we know, including like Kermit and Fozzie. No, they don't have to include that. There are some, including the Smurfs and Java. They could just be entertaining just through the creativity of the design of the Muppets that they made and the execution of how they sync with the music. It's definitely a lot of fun, and like I said, it's live action cartoon, so no matter what happens, it could be crazy, it could be over the top, but it's a lot of fun, and they did it in a way that only the Muppets can deliver. However, I will say, those things are definitely great, but even I know as a Muppet fan that this season in particular is not necessarily all that great. It does have a bit of its flaws. And all the flaws, I will say, they all share one similar problem. A lot of the moments, they just tell bad jokes, and that's it. There are some moments that are exclusive to Season 1 that they don't necessarily work out. I think the weakest bit of them all, there are these times that they cut to these houses, and all they do is just tell house puns. Like, that's it. Like, the show has to interrupt for some reason, and all you see them do is just make house puns. That's it. It makes no sense. It's just really dumb overall. And then there's another one that is just honestly a low point into every single episode, is the At the Dance sequence, because most of them are just telling bad jokes. It's just, you see the characters just dancing around, and all they do is just say bad jokes. There's really not much into it. Now, technically, yeah, there is also Fozzie Bear when he does his bits on stage, and also the Veterinarian's Hospital, but there is a fine line and there is a huge difference between the two. With Fozzie Bear, at least he has Statler and Waldorf to create some comedy. At least there's that relationship and that interaction that does bring out the true humor of those bits. And as for Veterinarian's Hospital, yeah, they do say bad puns all the time, but they do execute them in a way that is pretty enjoyable, thanks to Rolf and with the help of Janice and Miss Piggy. At the dance, they're just telling bad jokes and nothing more. What's actually very interesting to note with the At the Dance bits is that they would continue on with the following seasons, but it's only in season 1 that they would do it for every single episode, like one after another. But afterwards, they do realize that maybe it's a bit too much that they have to do it for every episode, so they actually did cut off a little bit, so you don't see it as much on every single episode. So at least that's good. So overall, I would say the issue with the Muppet Show is that, yeah, it does have a lot of bad puns, but yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. They do offer a lot of bad puns. I think what I really wanted to say is that, it's definitely a funny show, and it can even be laugh out loud funny, but not all the jokes really do hit their marks as much as they would want. But then again, it is a family-friendly show, and I guess those are just made for the kids, because only the kids would laugh at bad puns. Other than that, there is actually something very interesting that I would like to mention. Considering that we are talking about season 1, you can definitely tell that this is a season where they're thinking about trying to, how could they establish themselves as the Muppets? Because not all the Muppets are a lot like how you do remember them. In fact, there are some of them that are not really as prominent as you know them today. Like, of course, you got Kermit, you got Fozzie, and you probably got Animal. I would say, or maybe, actually, most of the members of the Electric Mayhem, they are pretty much established from the very beginning about who they are and what they do. So that one is easily established. But then you got plenty of other Muppets who have a bit of a hard time to figure out their own proper voice. Miss Piggy, I will say, she was almost there, but she was kind of a bit more of a background pig. Like, at the beginning, they didn't really use her a lot, and they only find her to be just like, you know, like all the other pigs. It's just, she's a female pig. In fact, the eyes that they put on her just doesn't seem like how she looks today. Like, they're absolutely different. And there is actually something very interesting with Miss Piggy, is that, like, as you guys may know, in the beginning, like, back during, like, the prime of the Muppet Show and stuff like that, Miss Piggy would always be performed by Frank Oz. Sometimes that would not be the case. There are times when Miss Piggy would actually be performed by Richard Hunt. And the weirdest part of them all is that it actually does happen when it can happen within the same episode, that sometimes Frank Oz will play as Miss Piggy, or like Richard Hunt will play as Miss Piggy, and you can immediately tell the difference. In fact, I think the biggest example of that is the segment is one, I think it was in the first episode, I believe, where all the characters would, well, not all the characters, like some of the characters would sing Temptation. And at the beginning, when Miss Piggy would talk, she would, like, it would be by Frank Oz. And then immediately afterwards, when Miss Piggy would sing Temptation, she would be performed by Richard Hunt. So it's kind of this weird traction there.
Piggy, honey? You can take the solo.
Yes, my love.
Oh,
and then another weird one you actually got is with Gonzo. Now, we all know Gonzo today as the crazy, chicken-loving daredevil, but he is really not like that today. Beforehand, he used to be known as the Artist, and this was back during his complete artist stage, and he was one of the more, like, secondary Muppet characters, where, like, he would just do these small, weird things, like, he would, even though afterwards, but, like, even after they do establish Gonzo, he would still be seen as the Artist, but, for some reason, Gonzo has a bit more of a, like, I don't know, it's hard to say, but he has more of a nasally, high-pitched voice than he normally would, and also, like, he's just known as like, a bad artist that everybody would just boo at, even more than Fozzie Bear, oddly enough, and it's kind of, like, at this point, it feels more like of a quote, like, kind of his catchphrase, where he would look at the stage and just yell out, "Yokels, Rubes!" You know, like, those old sayings, but also, there is another one that's actually really fascinating, is that they would feature the Muppet Labs, and they would show Dr. Bunsen Honeydew doing his stuff. But this is Dr. Bunsen Honeydew before Beaker came in. This was before the days that Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker were a duo. Before then, it was just Dr. Bunsen Honeydew. And I will have to admit that with those sketches, yeah, we do need to bring in Beaker, because I feel like nowadays, I don't know if because I'm spoiled as a Muppet fan right now, because I've experienced many sketches with Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker, but yeah, Dr. Bunsen Honeydew can't really perform on his own. He does need Beaker to work on some of the scientific comedy. And there actually is another Muppet that I just realized that she was completely different than how she is today, and that is Janice. Now, they pretty much got the character of Janice down. She is the guitarist of the Electric Mayhem. But the big difference is that she was performed by a woman during the first season. It's not like later on where, you know, she has a bit of that weird manly voice, but, you know, like, you know, it's performed by a guy, but you know that Janice is still a girl nonetheless. But yeah, so that's just a quick little mention that I want to do. And also, there is something that is worth mentioning, is that there are some Muppets that are made exclusively for Season 1. Wayne and Wanda, for example, is actually another recurring bit where they would sing some classic songs for like just a few seconds until everything just entirely screws up. And they're actually hosted by Sam the Eagle. Sam's mission in there is actually, he would introduce Wayne and Wanda to bring in the class and sophistication. Now, Sam can be arguable if he's like fully formed since the very beginning, or they still need to fully know who Sam is, until like we do know his identity. He's not like the major patriot we know him today. He's just there to mostly bring in the sophistication onto the Muppet Show, and he uses that with Wayne and Wanda. But Wayne and Wanda only appeared in season 1, which I guess they feel like they're not really worth it. They don't feel like they're prominent Muppets, but you know, like their segments are actually pretty funny, and I'm honestly a bit surprised that they would drop them in season 1. Other Muppets that they only appeared in season 1, there is George the Janitor, which, you know, honestly I'm surprised. He's not that bad of a character, you know. He's kind of like this oldish man, like whose job is like the grumpy old janitor. That's basically his role. You know, he's fine as a character. He seems like a welcome member of the Muppets, but for some reason they immediately dropped him soon afterwards, and of course later on he would be replaced by Beauregard. I don't know if George would later appear in other episodes of the Muppet Show or would appear with the Muppets in general, but it's kind of surprising how he just appears as the janitor for that one season of the Muppet Show. And another Muppet that they decided to let go is actually Hilda. And Hilda was known as the costume lady, and there was even one episode where they even prominently gave her own plot where she wants to feel young again. And I'm honestly surprised that they had to drop her off as well. She's not really as memorable as the other Muppets, considering that she's just the old lady who does the costumes, but you know, that's pretty much it with her. So I guess they kind of dropped her off because she doesn't seem as memorable. But yeah, like, you will find that there are plenty of other characters that they don't feel like how they are today, and you could definitely tell that they're only starting. And in terms of like character arcs and stuff like that, if there are some that are fully introduced, I would say that the only one that they've properly introduced, that they gave an introduction to, is probably just Scooter, because you actually do see how Scooter got into it because his uncle owns the theater and he wants to be the gopher of the entire Muppet Show. So that Scooter is probably the only one that they fully introduced. Now, as for my recommendations, there are some episodes that I will say that they definitely are true highlights. Sure, like, this is just the start of the Muppet Show, but there are some that they definitely are some of the best episodes overall. They definitely are fantastic. Now, if you guys do want to check out the Muppet Show and you want to start with season 1, let me just say right now that the ones you definitely have to watch and you gotta go see to get a full understanding of the best aspects of the Muppets. Some of these special guest stars and some of the episodes, technically, these would include Paul Williams, Harvey Korman, Peter Ustinov is actually pretty good, Avery Schreiber, Phyllis Diller, Vincent Price, Ethel Merman, and the Mummenschans. So those are the 8 episodes. You definitely have to check them out. If you're not going to marathon them, at least check out those episodes. So with all that said, taking in all the good aspects, the bad aspects, and some of the aspects that they do need to work on, I would say that overall, with the first season of The Muppet Show, I would give it about an 8 out of 10. This is definitely a great season so far. It's definitely entertaining, and you definitely do see the core heart of the Muppets and what they do. But like I said, it's just a start. This is how you see them at the beginning, and there are some things that they do need to fix up. There are some bad puns thrown in here and there, and maybe too many to make it a great show overall. And a lot of the characters, they don't feel like themselves or how they are as we know them today. But even with those aspects they still need to work on to fully form the Muppets that we know today, it's still fascinating to check out how they've all began. So this is still definitely worth checking out. It's not the best that the Muppets can offer, but it's still definitely fantastic what they've done with just this season alone. And just by watching all that, I would still definitely continue to go and check out more episodes afterwards. I still think that it definitely is worth it. So overall, it does need some things to fix up, but definitely a really good starter for the Muppet Show. And that is pretty much going to be it with Season 1 of The Muppets, so I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching and for going through this crazy adventure with Season 1. And we will see how things will shape up when they enter upon Season 2. Will they fix up many of the problems? Will they go and put less bad puns and actually put in some good jokes? Will the characters that we know will form into the ones that we know today? We'll just have to find out with Season 2 of The Muppet Show, so I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see you later, dudes!